All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I see some of you are popping into the chat where you're joining from. Linda from Kentucky, Nikki from Ohio. We have someone coming in from New Hampshire. Thank you for letting us know where you're joining us from. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Avery Bradford. I'm head of programming and events for Female Founder Collective in the 10th House. I am joining you today from Denver, Colorado. We are actually a remote team, so everyone you see on stage today is in a different state, which is pretty exciting. And then I also see some of you popping into the chat what your businesses are. Would love to see that chain going. Would love to just know if you're service or product based, and maybe some of you all can network and connect through the chat. I see some people joining from Jersey City, Miami, Las Vegas. Okay, beautiful. Before we get started, I'm sure you all know our co-founders, but in case you don't, I just want to give you a brief introduction. We have Alison Wyatt here. Allie is the CEO of the 10th House, the North, and Female Founder Collective, so she's got a lot going on. She's also an angel investor of some of your favorite companies and a former CRO. We also have Rebecca Minkoff here, who's the co-founder of the 10th House and Female Founder Collective. She's also a creator, a designer of her namesake brand. She's also an author, a podcaster, amongst many other things. So both of these ladies are extremely busy. So want to just say, first and foremost, thank you for sitting down with us today. We do this about once a quarter. And this time, we didn't do this last time. This is a special summer treat because I know a lot of people are popping in from vacation and their summer travels, hopefully. So if you RSVP today, you will get a follow-up email with a very special code to join the 10th House. The 10th House is our private membership community. You have the opportunity to apply before July 14th. I believe those applications close, I think it's at 5 p.m. your local time. You'll have to double check that. But the 10th House is a private membership community that includes educational programming. Industry leading experts come in and lead private discussions. They also lead workshops, things that are special for members only. We also have some events that we open up to the public, like this event today. We have networking opportunities both in person and online. We have hand-selected small group cohorts, which we call boardrooms. We have downloadable resources, really anything that you need to move the needle within your business and your community, we have available for you within the 10th House. And that's actually part of why we're here today is we gave members first access to send in their questions, but we're also going to be taking questions from anyone who RSVP'd. So if you hear your name shouted out today, would love to see you hop into the comments section and say, hey, that was me, that was my question. So I'm going to start off with a question from Kristen Z. Kristen Z and Allie, I'm going to open this one up to you. It is, if you have a lot of competing priorities, how do you rank the best way to network through the 10th House? Because we have things like co-working days with our city sessions, we have our virtual huddles, and this is from a current member who's also a consulting service provider, if that helps you at all answer that question, Allie.
So it's a little hard to answer that question on your behalf because it really kind of depends on what type of business you have and what those competing priorities are. What I would say is sort of look at what is your number one priority, maybe rank order them at your top 3. And then based off of that, if you're looking for leads, it would be great for you to host a community conversation. So our community conversations are actually led by our members. They're based off of common pain points that you see. So it might be that you help on brand strategy. And we actually just had somebody comment inside the 10th House about trying to figure out who their exact target market is, right? And while as a business owner or a founder, you can figure out to some degree who your target market is, it's really difficult to sort of hone in on exactly what those characteristics are, where you should be focusing your marketing efforts, whether it's in a specific social channel, where the target market's spending their time, and maybe you have too broad of a target market that you need to narrow. These are all sort of questions that come up in a community conversation type of format. So I think that those are a highly, highly effective thing. You can get as many as 30 to 40 people that will participate in those. The other thing is just being a frequent commenter inside of the 10th House community. There are different sections of the 10th House community, so you can go into the area that's most important for your business. But the reality is there's people that are always asking questions. going in and responding to those questions, showing how helpful you are instead of just telling people about your consulting business is really helpful. But one thing I would say is that we found in the past when a B2B type of business, like a consulting business, comes in and they're constantly pitching their services, it sort of turns people off from working with them. Instead, you can be more sort of showing, not telling
Mhm.
what kind of services you offer. And there's been really high response rates for that. You can also pitch to Avery what your specific expertise is, potentially get involved in the North, which is our expert mentorship marketplace. So there's a lot of different ways. If you want to connect with people in person, those city sessions are the way to go, but you don't have to. There's a lot of different ways that you can garner clients. So I hope that's helpful, but it sort of depends on your business.
Yeah, that was such a good answer. It really does depend on your priorities. And we got a lot of great questions. We got some about fundraising, about marketing, about leads, about hiring. So we're going to get into all of that now. This next one is specifically about funding. And this one's from Kimberly Jenkins. And that is, how do you make the decision that outside funding is necessary or even critical for the sustainability and growth for your business? Allie, I know you're an investor, but I want to start with Rebecca on this. How can people decide when it's time to take on outside funding?
So I think each business is definitely unique in needing funding. I think that if you find yourself growing at a rapid pace and the production, let's just say, if it's a product, is going to cost you more than you have money for. But I also think that some people just think that everyone I meet is like, I'm raising money, I'm raising money, I'm raising money. Not all businesses should or need to raise money. You can also figure out how to grow profitably, and maybe you do an initial angel raise, and then from there you bootstrap it and you keep yourself going. I'm not a fan of raising money to start. I like to find product market fit. I like to find the heat around something, and then wait till everyone's begging you to take their money before you do that. And there's other non-traditional forms of money that can be taken, whether it is credit, small business loan, crowdfunding. Not saying all that is easy. There's loans you can take on Shopify. But I would say get heat around your product, get desire and demand, and wait as long as you can, or grow without funding. I interviewed someone on my podcast a couple weeks ago who bootstrapped and never took a dime of funding. And she has a huge beauty company and she owns 100% of it. And there's an incredible freedom in that. So that would be my 2 cents.
That's such great advice. Yeah, Allie, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think what Rebecca said about product market fit is critical, right? You shouldn't take outside capital unless you know exactly what you want to do with it. And I would think about outside capital as fuel, not as a necessity, not as your foundation that you're using, unless you're planning to build, if you have a tech product, it's very hard to build a business that's bootstrapped, right? Because you need a lot of initial sort of R&D and technology, and that's expensive. But if you're building a business and you see, okay, this is working, and if I have a financial model that shows that with X amount of dollars, I'm going to get Y amount of revenue, then that's when I would go and take outside capital, when you're fairly certain that you can have a certain growth trajectory based off of it.
Absolutely. And I can see Elizabeth E. said 100% agree, Rebecca. And this next question is on the funding route. This one's specifically for you, Allie, from Alexandra Griffin. And that is, what are some of the most effective ways to connect with angel investors? You're an angel investor yourself. And what are some of the biggest pitfalls early stage startups make when embarking on friends and family or pre-seed raises?
Well, I'm going to start with pitfalls because I think it relates to the last question. Is not having an idea what your roadmap looks like, what your product market fit is, really not having a sense of, okay, how am I going to use this capital to drive my business forward? Because investors want to see at the end of the day, what is my potential return on the investment look like? And you should be able to answer that relatively quickly, and just have a really clear plan of how you're going to be using the capital, but then also what growth metrics that you want to hit. And then going back to networking with angels, it is difficult. There's a lot of angel groups out there. But the other thing that I would say is that I think some of the best relationships with angels can happen when they're also potential advisory board members. So reaching out to people that are in the industry that you're building a business in, who are maybe at a corporate, you'd be surprised. A lot of people, maybe they don't list that they're angel investors, but they are. And if you connect to those angel investors that are really concentrated in your industry or field, then they'll have other connections to pass you along to. And I think just making it super easy for angels to pass along, because a lot of people invest together. And so just having a paragraph, this is what my business is, and then points of traction, how you plan to use the capital, how much you're raising, making it just super simple for angels to press forward and loop in their friends that maybe you don't know are investors, but that would be a really great fit for your business.
Yeah, and on that note, inside of the 10th house, you can get access to an angel investor roadmap, which Ali actually was the creator of. And she lists out a bunch of different angel investor networks in there. So really highly recommend that you take a look at that. And then also inside of the 10th house, we do quarterly pitch events where we break you up into small groups and pair you up with an angel investor or an investor who typically invests in your industry or stage. And then that can then lead to connections, and they could possibly become an investor in your company as well. So putting yourself out there and doing different competitions and events, I think is also helpful. This next question is for you, Rebecca, and it is from Naz Dien. And it is, in the fast-paced and evolving trends of the fashion industry, how do you stay ahead of the curve and adapt to changing consumer preferences while maintaining a consistent brand identity? That's a hard balance.
Oh, it's the daily challenge. So I think that as a brand, we've identified exactly what we stand for, who our customer is, the aesthetic. You're always going to know, like, close your eyes, a little bit of rock and roll, a little bit of bohemian. I think we ride that line, we message that line, we look that line, our marketing. So no matter what trends come and go, we're going to do our, let's just say version, let's say of the bucket hat that Gen Z is wearing, but it's going to have studs, or it's going to be black with, some great embroidery. And so I think because we've sort of written down our brand codes, we sort of view everything through that lens. And there are trends that we will never get on, that you sort of have to say, you know what, that's not going to work for us. As a brand, as a company, because it's not right for who our customer is. And so sometimes you're saying no to things that lots of people are doing, and it looks like everyone's having all the fun. But I think if you become everything to everybody, then you don't stand for anything. And so sometimes as hard as it is, you have to put your stake in the ground and say, nope, we don't do that. I wish I could think of something that we said no to recently that just didn't make sense. A brand came to us and said, hey, we're going to give you a lot of money if you make a blazer that will hold a cold beverage. And I said, well, no woman wants to have a blazer that holds a cold beverage. Like, that's just not where you'd put a beverage. Maybe in your bag, but not a blazer. And so it was just an interesting conversation to try and convince this person, that it wasn't right, and could we do something else? And they had their heart set on a can of soda going into a jacket, and we said we can't do it. So there are times when you just have to hold true to your brand and hold true to what women might want. That is hard to say no, but it's better in the end.
I think that's such great advice, not just for the fashion industry, but for any industry. I love that. This next question is from Danny K, and I'm going to ask you both separately. Ali, I'm going to ask you from the FFC side, and Rebecca, I'm going to ask you from the Rebecca Minkoff side. What were the first 3 to 5 hires you made when you first started your business? Ali, let's start with you. We are, the 10th house and FFC is a service-based business, so it's a little different there.
Yeah. Well, I love this question because I think this is literally the most important part of scaling a business. And In the past companies, I've always been like one of the number one people there, or the starting people there. I shouldn't say number one, the starting person there. And so I've had the great fortune of getting to build teams. And your team and the way that you build it is so integral for your success. So what I would say is it does depend on your industry and what your company is. But what I would do first, especially if you're a solo founder, or even if you have a co-founder, is write down all the things that you want to do, that you feel are your superpowers, you think you're really good at, so that you're able to leverage your time in the best way possible and get all the things off your plate that you're like mediocre at. Not even like, oh, I could do this, but you shouldn't do it if you're not efficient and fast and amazing at it, because you're just not going to win that way. So one of the things that I'm not great at is operations. And so I always look for somebody who is super organized in sort of back end operations and is going to be able to sort of run the day to day or aspects of the revenue operations of the business. And I love to run the revenue part of the business. I love meeting with clients. I love meeting with potential customers. I love sort of coming up with what is our value proposition and what do we offer, and thinking about marketing tactics in order to get there. But then from a marketing perspective, in order to drive revenue, I always bring in a salesperson, right? Or if you don't have sales as a service of your business, then I would bring in a marketing person. And that's somebody who is a marketing person that can drive revenue in a really sort of tactical manner. So I think that's really important. But it's really sort of reflecting and saying, what am I good at? And sort of making that list. Hi, Leo. And then Rebecca and I sat down when we started the business and really talked about, okay, what are the things that we want to do day to day? What are we really good at? How can we leverage ourselves? And then built the team around that. And for the 10th house, Avery was one of the very first hires, because so integral to what we do is education. And Avery is an expert at education and makes the process so easy and so wonderful and so smooth for us, because she's amazing at what she does. And so look for people that are also A players who can lead your business into the future to the business you want to have, not just the person that is inexpensive and who, is maybe more junior and therefore is what your business can afford, because you're going to want to build the team for the business of the future that you want to have, not the business that you have now.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Rebecca, I'm curious from a product-based business side, how you would answer that question.
So my first, I'd say my first hire was someone who could run around the garment center for me. She was my right hand. She did everything. But I was spending all my time sourcing zippers, hardware, all that I wasn't able to focus on sales and design. And so that it was my gopher was my first hire. And then as we started being able to hire more people, it was very clear that I needed another designer on the team who could do the day-to-day communication with the factory, draw everything, spec it out. I'll never forget her first day was the beginning of some of our crazy marketing campaigns. And I literally handed her the design deck. And I was like, you go, I got to be out front, making sure this event that we're doing gets pulled off. And she's still with me today, 17 years later. And then we hired a graphic designer, because I think the communication of our brand as direct to consumer was just beginning, was incredibly important. We had sales outsourced, so that's why I'm not including that. That was a sales agency that did all of our sales in the beginning. And same with PR. So really in-house, it was design, marketing, and then production. And I'll never forget when we made that first hire, it was the biggest relief I've ever experienced with someone to help produce the bag. So I think, echoing Allie, writing down everything you want to do and everything you're terrible at, remove the ego. What do you suck at? Don't do it. To me, that could be the greatest first hire, because they complete, the puzzle and allow you to focus on your strengths and do what you don't like and what you aren't good at to help grow the business.
That puzzle visual is so helpful. This next question is also for you, Rebecca, and this one is from Emily Lemandry. hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. How important is it to run ads on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok in this current digital marketing landscape? Or are you moving away from paid ads and reallocating your time more towards things like collaborations and partnerships?
So sadly, advertising is still incredibly important. All of our budget that we have allocated goes to these ads. As much, we would love to take some of that budget and do more top of funnel activations, but right now it's about what's converting. And sadly, Facebook and Instagram convert for us. It is expensive. So, we try and do as much organic top of funnel marketing as possible. Just to continue to bring in the new customer who's never heard of us. And then I think as much as you can be in front of the customer right now is incredibly important, whether it's at a pop-up shop or a trunk show or, women hosting parties for you, like getting that in real time, time with your consumer, and that word of mouth is really powerful. So how do you sort of take these women that are already fans and make them your ambassadors? And that costs you zero. It costs you maybe a free bag every couple months or a free whatever every couple months. But how do you incentivize these women to really get behind you and sort of be your ambassadors? And I think there's a lot of women who want to support. In the beginning, I had a woman host a party at her house 4 times a year, and she'd invite all her friends and they would buy all the bags, and I left with cash that night. So I think there's creative ways to do the Tupperware parties, to do the pop-up shops that don't have to cost a lot of money, but that get you in front of your customer if you're not in a store already.
That's amazing. Leo seems to agree with everything you just said. And we're getting people agreeing with you in the chat as well. Kendra says, shout out to all of the working mothers out there.
Shout out to all the moms whose babies decided not to take a bottle the last 2 days. So
no.
Yes, that is why he is making his cameo, because he said, no bottles for me. Gonna just starve it out or come to work with you.
Leo, maybe he wants a banana. You never know. Okay, this next one is from Diana, and that is, what are some ways to promote my business on a small marketing budget? So we talked about paid, and Rebecca, you gave some great advice for some creative small budget marketing tactics. Allie, do you have anything to add to that?
I think just start building your email list as soon as possible, because that's honestly, with every company I've ever been at, if you don't have an email list, you don't have a revenue funnel. And it's going to be your most leaned in and engaged audience and consumers, and creating content for them so that they keep coming back and they're encouraged to open that, and delivering value beyond just what you sell is really important. So I would start cultivating your email list, and then organic social, sort of same as Rebecca said, I think is so important. But those, I would say, are the 2 main things I would focus on initially if you don't have a budget.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I feel like people ignore email a lot now because there are shinier, newer things coming out every day, but email is still, number one converter. And I completely agree. Every company I've worked with has been the same. So hopefully you all feel the same way. This next one is from Shruti G, and that is, what would be the number one thing you would not compromise on if you were to start a new business from scratch today? Rebecca, let's start with you.
I think it goes back to doing things that are on brand and right for the brand, right for your company. There were many years where we just said yes to whatever the buyer wanted. I think my favorite example is the buyer came in wanting a laptop tote that said Nerd Alert. And my former president at the time looked at me and I was like, we can't do that. She's like, well, do you want, the revenue or not? I don't want to be the one who doesn't make my numbers because you said no. And at the time, being naive and innocent in the business sense, I said, okay, fine. I don't want to be the one who also says no to 6 figures of revenue on a laptop that says Nerd Alert. And we took it all back. It wasn't right for the brand. It wasn't right for the company. And so I think you just have to hold firm sometimes in your decisions, and you might grow a little slower, but brand integrity is everything. And when you lose it, the customer sniffs it out and will happily go find someone else.
Right. And that's how you become like you said, if I see something Rebecca Minkoff, even if I don't see your name anywhere on it, I'm like, I know that's Rebecca. And that's just so important. Allie, do you have anything to add to that? Anything that you wouldn't compromise on if you were to start a new business from scratch today?
This is kind of always how I am, but like a budget to hire the person that rounds you out, like the puzzle piece that Rebecca was talking about, I think is just so important. Because like you're just not setting yourself up for success if you're launching a business, and unless you're a solopreneur and you have a consulting business, and if that's the case, then I would just make sure you know exactly what sort of your service and product offerings are out of the gate so you can start making revenue.
Mhm. Love that. This one is for you, Rebecca, and is from LaShawn, and that is, did you experience any financial hardships when first starting out? And if so, how did you find creative ways to pull yourself out of it?
The question that should be asked is, did you experience financial hardships the entire founder journey? Okay. The answer is yes. Even when we did get funding, we had financial hardships. So I would say, first and foremost, we chose to bootstrap. That is a very hard thing to do. It means, again, you don't really have money for a lot of extra things. So we would have to get creative around a fashion week and get sponsors to help pay for the shows, or certain activations, we would get sponsors to help supplement what the costs were. I think that when you build a product, you need to build in a proper margin. In the beginning, we didn't do that. We built our margin for growth. No one could figure out why our bags were priced the way they were, and it was because we didn't have a margin built into those. And so to back into that is always way harder. And yes, it grew us 548% over 3 years, but that came with a lot of sacrifices. So I think first and foremost, make sure your product is built with the right margin for that industry. And then I would say that as much as you can, focus on organic collaborations, partnerships. I think if all the women tuning in today, once you're part of the 10th house, you'll be able to reach out and contact each other. But the power of a network is insane. And the power of being creative when you don't have money, either you get creative or you find someone who works on your team who is. We did scavenger hunts around the city to find our bags. We didn't need to do much marketing around that because all these women wanted free bags. We hosted girls' night out events. What was the cost? A couple of bottles of rosé. And so I think that you can get very creative if you don't have money. And as long as you stay true to what people think of you as a brand promise, you will find that customer. She will support you, and she wants to be a part of your growth. It's always exciting for a woman in her circle to be like, I discovered this brand. I'm the coolest girl in the room because of that. And so you can help those women do that by your product and the events you do and the grassroots marketing that you can come up with when you don't have funding. And lastly, I will say that when you look at the brands that do have a lot of money, yes, it's flashy, but is it that creative? I find that sometimes when we're still rubbing sticks together, even today, we are so much more creative because of it than if we just had $1 million at our disposal.
Agreed. And you mentioned margins, and just another plug, because we have such a rich resource library, we do have a profit margin worksheet on our education page of the 10th house. This next question is from Aaron Floyd, and that is, I need help converting interest into sales. I think that's something a lot of businesses struggle with. But the more and more I try to do, the less interested people get. I'm running out of excitement for my company and feeling a little hopeless. Do you have any advice for attracting and converting leads? And also, even on that note, how to stay excited? Either one of you, Allie, if you want to start with this one.
Well, I'd be interested to know. I mean, it's hard to answer that without sort of understanding what the product or service is, but I'm assuming this is a service business just based off of the question. What I would say is, if you're not excited about it, you're losing interest and sort of hope, it might be that you need to change up the value proposition a bit or repackage it, maybe try a different price point, but lessen the number of services that you're offering. I would say that if it's not working, if it's not converting, there's something wrong with one of those things. It's either like I said, the price, the way that you're packaging it, the way that you're communicating it, or the value proposition itself. And so I would evaluate those things and I would try to isolate sort of one thing at a time and test it and see if the nice thing about when you're sort of starting out and you're a solopreneur is that you have that flexibility. So pivot, try something else, and that'll also breathe more energy and life and excitement into what you're doing, because you can think of it as like a sort of scientific experiment. And the other thing I would do is offer a couple free sessions with yourself. If you are, again, a solopreneur or a service provider, go through the motion and sort of develop case studies of working with people first, offering your services for free, not because that's the value of your services, but because that will help you understand what is valuable in what you offer. And then you'll have these priceless testimonials to be able to put out on your socials, on your website, and to be able to share around that people will be really excited about. And I think will up your chances of conversion.
Yeah, Allie, that is such great advice. As as someone who does consult, isolating the problem is so key. Are people going to your Instagram and following you, but that once they go to your opt-in page, they're not, adding their name and email, or they're not purchasing. Is it the price? Is it the messaging? Finding out where people are getting stuck. That's such great advice. And even if it's a 20-minute consult that you're just giving away for free to get those testimonials, I love that advice, Allie. Rebecca, this next question is for you, and it's from Lauren Goodwin, and it's: do you have any advice for up-and-coming handbag companies that are trying to prove demand? Specifically, any advice on selecting and working with factories?
Well, I have a lot to say. I don't think we have time for all my answers. I would say that I'm a little confused about the question of trying to prove demand, because if you have demand there, it should show in your sales. Factories in the United States, sadly, are tough. They're very expensive, and you end up ordering all the parts from overseas anyway. So if you can find an overseas factory, their minimums might be higher, but you'll save a lot more money. I think in the beginning, it's critical to make and find a factory in the US to get your sample perfect before you send it overseas. And I think these factories are all looking for business. A lot of the bigger brands are plateauing, and these factories need a pipeline of new designers. So don't be afraid to negotiate, push back. I'm a new designer, help me out. And then I think that depending on who your target market is, influencers love being able to brag and say they discovered new brands, whether it's micro or nano influencers. And so, get your bag seen and out there. As much as the direct to consumer heyday is waning, I think there's a balance of both being in specialty stores, being direct to consumer. I know everyone wants to be in the department stores, but that is a very costly exercise. So I would caution you until you have a critical mass of specialty stores, the coolest boutiques in every city in town that are carrying your stuff, so that when a woman does walk into a department store and is bombasted with all the luxury brands, you can close your eyes as you walk into any department store, you see, right, there's a square that you're fed into as the cattle going in. That's going to win 90% of the time more than your little square plaque that's this big and a woman walking in and noticing you. So you want to have enough awareness for someone to know and look for you. So, I'm sure the formula's changed, but when I started, my sales agency was like, you need to be in 500 specialty stores before I ever sell to a department store. There's far less specialty stores today as COVID eroded a lot of them, but you might need to be in 250 before you sell to a department store. So again, use a US factory to get your sample perfect, negotiate with overseas factories. You could even, if you find the right factory, I have a friend, it was a lingerie company, but she partnered 50-50 with the factory. And when she sold her company for $80 million, they got 40, but she grew her brand quite big and was able to take advantage of a factory that was her partner and gave her low cost goods and really funded a lot of the things that hampered designers in the beginning.
That's such great advice. I really love this next question. It's from Q Sutton. Allie, I'm going to pass it to you first and then Rebecca over to you. And that is, how did the challenges of life itself prepare you for the challenges in entrepreneurship? What did you learn and what can you share as a message to others navigating their next level or their venture in business? Allie, let's start with you here.
It's so many people like life coaches and these sort of superstar executive coaches say that entrepreneurship and people that have sold their company, entrepreneurship is an exercise in personal development. So I think that question is dead on in like everything in life, sort of your business prepares you for the things in life and then conversely. What I would say is I think becoming a mom really helped me with understanding business because first of all, you're constantly having to juggle your time, figure out how to prioritize it, use it wisely. Because if you don't use it wisely, then you're letting down these little people, and then you're also letting down your business. So I think using time in the best way possible is one of the things I learned. I think in life that the fact that not every day is going to be rainbows and butterflies and in entrepreneurship most days won't be. You have to sort of prepare to be failing and up against a challenge every single day. And frankly, with my kids, it's a challenge every single day. And I have to sort of have the mental fortitude and stability to say to myself, everything's going to work out. Just keep going. And there was a soul cycle instructor that I used to take, and she said the only way is through. And it's like I always think about that in business challenges is look at it because as a founder, and you've probably seen this, it is a massive roller coaster. And every day it feels like you're thrown these things that you're like, wow, this could cost me my business. Like this could be it. But you just have to sort of say to yourself, the only way is through. I got this. Like I've been in this seat before many, many times, and I've never not been able to manage it. So everything's going to work out. The only way is through. Keep moving forward and keep a positive attitude that like you've got this. It sounds cheesy, but you do. And as a founder, you have to like really believe in yourself and your ability to navigate through things.
So true. I love that advice. What about you, Rebecca? What challenges in your life prepared you for entrepreneurship?
So I think that I grew up in a family that anything I wanted, I had to work for and earn myself. So that prepared me very early on that nothing was going to get handed to me and that anything I wanted, I would have to make. I was also raised to be independent. Like you want something, figure it out. You want to move to New York? Great. Figure it out. How are you going to do that? Who are you going to call? There was no mother calling, her friend for me. So I think that prepared me. And then once you're in it, I think once you've decided to be a founder, you have to love what you do so much that the crap that sucks 90% of the time you're willing to deal with, because that 10% of a store ordering or a great person wearing the brand or, those highs that are truly 10% of the time are worth it. And that's the pay and that's the reward. I think that it only gets harder if you decide to have children. And like Allie said, you have to be a multitasking monster. I think that what that prepared me for was delegating and really building a team of incredible people that could take on the bricklaying, right? You can only lay so many bricks. And so how do they help do that? And then making sure that you're constantly figuring out for yourself what works and doesn't work and hiring to solve it, or planning on how you're going to change things so that you can have a family, you can work. I think a stay-at-home mom has the hardest job. I think my kids dealing with negotiating who gets to sit in front is way harder than most of my problems at the office now. I'm glad I'm not a diplomat. But I think that, if you love what you do, then all this sort of washes out when it's really hard. And it will be hard more than it is easy. So you have to buckle in for the ride.
Yeah, and like Ali said, just the only way is through. You'll just know it's going to work out. It has so far, it will moving forward. I love this next question from Ashley and that is, what was your most valuable learning you had in the early days of scaling your business? For example, going from one location to many. Ali, let's start with you on this one. A valuable learning that you took from those early days.
Um, I'm going to go back to I know I feel like a broken record. The people and hiring piece is really important, because what that does, and I've never scaled to multiple locations because notably I haven't had a brick and mortar business. But what I have seen scale, to multiple hundreds of people, hundreds of millions of dollars, is when you pick the right people, then they start to make the decisions that you would otherwise have to make. It goes beyond, like Rebecca's talking about bricklaying. So there's the stuff in the early days where, like she said, you can only lay so many bricks. But then the next challenge becomes of scaling. You can only make so many decisions in a day. So you also have to delegate that decision making, and you have to know that the person that you're delegating that to, it has better judgment on that topic and that sort of particular skill set than you do. So if it's about locations, and it's finding somebody, if this isn't your background, it's finding somebody who knows how to negotiate on real estate, who knows what those operational costs might look like, who knows how to create a playbook for how are you going to roll out each market? What does opening look like in every single location that you have? So you're not having to sit there and recreate that playbook yourself every single time and having to sort of micromanage those rollouts.
Yeah,
So that's what I would say.
I love the point of delegating tasks is one thing, delegating decisions is another. I feel like that's so crucial when you want to scale. Rebecca, is there anything that you'd like to add as far as your key learnings when you first scaled? And then and if it doesn't work, we can move to the next question. I know we've just got a couple minutes
No,
left.
it's fine. I'll try and keep it distinct. We had 3 US stores. One failed because we didn't do our due diligence with just demographics and surveys, right? We opened up in an area that had women that didn't want casual clothing, and they wanted luxury handbags. So we should have surveyed better. Sorry, guys.
No need to be sorry.
He's just so cute, though.
He is so cute. He's not.
I can answer this question in give me 5 minutes.
No, you're good. You're good. And I know we just have a couple of minutes left. So Ali, and this next question was for you anyways. I'm going to combine 2. One's from Marta and one's from Rebecca T. Marta asked, how can we maximize the opportunity of being a member inside of the 10th house? And Rebecca T's question is, she's interested in getting a little bit more clarification on how being a part of the membership works on a weekly and monthly basis. So there is a monthly fee or an annual fee, but are there additional fees to get access to our events? And then are there both virtual and in-person opportunities? She's just wanting to know kind of what the lay of the land is once you're inside, and I can riff with you a little bit here and add to it.
Yeah, so once you're inside, I'm going to start with that, because it might help answer the other question as well. We have, over 180 events per year. We have about 8 in-person events, city sessions per month. So there's the chance to meet and get together in person. And we're actually doing a lot more events as FFC in our hub cities. So our hub cities are New York and Los Angeles. You're going to see a lot more happening in New York this coming fall. And we also have events. We'll be having events in San Francisco as well. If you're not in the hub cities, do not worry. We have people in virtually every market across the country. So a lot of people actually asked me in one-on-ones if it made sense if they were in Des Moines, Iowa, to join the community. And what I would say to that is it makes probably even more sense, because this gives you a network across the country, and we do so much virtually as well. So Avery's planning her workshops, and I'll let her talk a little bit more about that. We have our community conversations that are led by our community, but then also if you log into Circle, which a lot of people join, and then they're like, I don't get where's the value of this community? And basically our entire hub is on Circle. And you can go in and you can ask questions 24/7 to our community. And almost all the time, you're going to get an answer within 24 hours, whether it's about an email service provider or how to navigate a conversation with an investor, how to think about your pricing strategy as a service provider. We have a service provider board that's really amazing. We actually are rolling out our resources section, which is thousands of recommended resources that you can search by software product or services, or if you're looking for a digital marketing agency, you can actually go and sort, and you can then see who recommended it. And based off of that testimonial, you can reach out to that individual to get a little bit more information to see if it's right for your business, right? Because if you're looking for a CRM, it totally depends on what type of business you have. And so we wanted to sort of layer in that context. So we're very excited about that. Or you can reach out directly to other members. On the monthly versus annual thing, the fee for 10th House is for an entire year. The monthly is just paying monthly, if that's easier for your sort of cash flow purposes, versus paying annually upfront. And the reason why we have a year membership is we found if you're only in it for a couple months, you're honestly not going to get the value out. And we do a lot of things quarterly. We put you into these small group cohorts called our boardrooms. And we try to match you as best possible with like-minded founders so that you're going to have monthly meetups, virtually or in person, with these individuals to really talk through your business challenges and workshop them.
And everything, just as you're, just to round out your question, Rebecca, everything that Allie just mentioned is a part of your membership.
Oh, yeah.
Only members get access to the workshops, to the community conversations. We also drop a new downloadable resource, at least one per month, sometimes more. And those, are anywhere from financial spreadsheets to angel investor guides. We also did a pitch bundle that was actually pitch templates that you can use, while you fundraise or however you decide to pitch your business. And you can also host events and use that as a way to share your expertise with people and to spread the word about your business in a really value-driven way. So everything that we just mentioned is a part of the membership, and it is no additional fee. The only thing that is an additional fee is our flagship events, which are things like Female Founders Day, which we do every year, and that the location of that changes. But those monthly events are all a part of the membership. Okay, Rebecca, if you would like to pop in with your final notes on key learnings from your scaling days, and then I'm just going to share one final reminder and some couple of things that people can look forward to coming up.
Yes. Basically what I was saying is our other two locations we had to close due to COVID. And so I think that, surveys are your best friend. If it means you standing outside of the location that you're in, do it. And you're the person asking, but you learn so much about your demographic, where they shop, what they go to, what they're looking for. And sometimes what you think is right is completely not right for where your customer might be and where she's looking. And so we're looking to open stores again, but again, we're not going to do it until we're certain it's the right area and the right demographic, and it's going to be consistent. And they're very costly exercises. So you can do pop-up shops. You can do, again, I keep talking about these Tupperware parties that I'm obsessed with. But I think the more you can grassroots it, the better. And just be certain about your customer before you go spend all the time and money to open a store that eats money like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah. That is amazing. Thank you everybody who joined us today. I know we went just a couple of minutes over time, and we mentioned the 10th House or private membership community. Just one final reminder, you have until July 14th to apply for that. There is a special promo code for those of you who joined us today. It's in the comments section of this post. I will also be sending it in a reminder email for those of you who RSVP'd. And we're just so grateful that you all are a part of our community and that you're able to join us on this adventure. Allie, any last minute notes before we end this call?
I would just say, I know this is an investment. We are a bootstrapped business ourselves. And so we're in the weeds with you, and we're feeling the same pains and growth issues that you are. And so our goal is to make this as valuable as possible. And if you don't join and now isn't the right time, that is fine too. And if you feel like there are things that you would love to see offered that would encourage you to sign up, we're here. Our ears are open. We love hearing from you all. And we just want to be helpful. So onwards and upwards, keep doing what you're doing. And thank you for the time.
Yes, thank you. I'm seeing Colleen, Jacqueline, Lisa, Nikki, Holly, Shruti, Macy, everyone saying thank you to the both of you for this discussion today. We will see you inside of the 10th house. I think this is our last public event before the cohort opens up. We have a really great resilience workshop coming up, and just so many other amazing workshops. Then the pitch event is coming up in a couple of weeks as well. So excited to see all of our members at our upcoming events. So see you all soon. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.